My neighbor called the police thinking I was beating my wife. When the officers arrived, they discovered that the cry for help was coming from my parrot. I was in the open garage outside the house, trying to pump up a tire that kept going flat every week. The air pump was running, and my head was already a mess when I heard voices behind me. I turned around and saw two police officers walking up the sidewalk, both with that serious look like they were about to deal with something urgent. One of them asked if my wife was home and if they could talk to her. I thought that was weird since she had left early to visit her mom. That's when the other officer said they had received a report of someone screaming for help coming from my house. Right then, I knew. I dropped the air pump and went to get the culprit. The parrot, Charlie, was on his perch, screaming in the most convincing way possible. "Help! Please, help me!" The voice was identical to my wife's. The officers stood there in silence for a few seconds before one of them started laughing. The other tried to hold it in but couldn't. I only managed to laugh afterward, a bit embarrassed, wondering what my neighbor must be thinking now. I was in my garage that Saturday morning, sweating and already annoyed with a tire that kept losing air every single week. It was one of those things I'd been putting off, and I promised myself I'd finally fix it before noon. My wife, Megan, had gone to visit her mom an hour earlier, so the house was quiet. Just me, the sound of the air pump, and my growing frustration. I was crouched beside the car, hands greasy, when I thought I heard something faint behind me. I didn't pay much attention at first. Figured it was the pump or maybe the radio from a neighbor's yard, but then it got louder. A voice. A woman's voice. It sounded desperate. I turned off the pump, stood still, and listened. "Help! Please help me!" The words cut through the noise. My stomach dropped. It came from inside my house. For a split second, my brain went to the worst possible place. Megan was supposed to be gone, but what if she'd come back and something had happened? What if someone broke in? I ran halfway to the door before logic caught up. The car was gone, and I had the keys. Still, the yelling didn't stop. It was sharp. Terrified, echoing just enough to sound real. I was about to call 911 when I heard movement outside. When I turned, two police officers were already walking up the driveway. One of them had his hand near his holster, scanning the garage like I was some kind of suspect. The other, taller one asked, "Sir, is your wife home? We got a call about someone screaming for help." I froze. "My wife? No, she's..." "Wait, what?" "Multiple neighbors reported hearing a woman shouting for help from inside your house," the tall one said, his tone calm but direct. "Is there anyone else here with you?" That's when it clicked. "Oh my God," I muttered, half laughing, half terrified about what they were thinking right now. I dropped the air pump, wiped my hands on my jeans, and motioned for them to follow me. "I think I know what this is." They looked at each other, obviously unsure whether to trust me, but followed anyway. I led them through the kitchen and into the living room, and there he was, Charlie, my African gray parrot, sitting on his perch, puffed up and proud, tilting his head like he was waiting for applause. "Help! Please, help me!" he screamed again, in perfect imitation of my wife's voice. Same pitch, same tone, same dramatic panic. The officers just stared. No one said a word for a few seconds. Then the younger one broke first. He laughed so hard he had to cover his face. The taller one tried to stay professional, but even he cracked a smile. "That's your wife?" he asked, nodding at the bird. "Apparently," I said. "She taught him that as a joke months ago. Didn't think it would cause a police visit." They both laughed, shaking their heads. One of them muttered something like, "Man, that's a first," and started writing something in his notepad. I apologized about 5 times, explaining that I was alone, and that my wife really was out of town. They didn't seem too upset, more amused than anything, but the whole thing was embarrassing as hell. When they finally left, I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling my heart still racing. Then I looked at Charlie, who blinked at me like he knew exactly what he'd done. "You just cost me a reputation, buddy," I told him. He tilted his head again and without missing a beat said, "Help! Please help!"